All right, get ready for a different kind of deep dive today.
Different how?
Well, today our expert is a teenager.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, so we're diving into Growing Beyond the Syllabus by LOUKIKK CHHATBAR.
Catchy title.
Right. And it's interesting because it's self-help, but written by a 16-year-old for other teenagers.
So he's writing from like right in the thick of it then.
Exactly. He's not speaking from years of hindsight, but about what it's like to be navigating life as a teen right now.
Must be pretty relatable for anyone listening who's in that same boat.
Totally. And one of the first things he tackles is this idea of, embracing your individuality. Like, don't try to fit in a box or follow the crowd.
Which is easier said than done at that age, right?
Oh, absolutely. But he uses this example of these identical twins he knows.
Identical twins.
Yeah.
Come on.
Yeah, and he points out how even though they have the same genes, same upbringing, they're totally different people, different personalities, different things they're good at, different preferences.
So it's like nature versus nurture can only go so far.
Right. And it kind of dismantles this idea that there's one right way to be a teenager.
Makes you wonder how many kids are out there trying to force themselves into a mold.
Totally. And LOUKIKK's whole message is like, dare to differ. He even talks about how he chose to study Sanskrit in school.
Instead of like the more practical option.
Yeah. Everyone was telling him to take French, said it'd look better on college applications. But he was really drawn to Sanskrit, so he went for it.
That takes guts.
Yeah.
Going against the grain like that.
Right. And it really emphasizes the importance of trusting your instincts, like what feels right for you, even if it's not the popular choice.
And that ties into another concept he talks about, right? The third ray.
Yes. Tell me more about this. I'm really intrigued by this idea.
Okay, so imagine you're facing a tough decision, like a real head-scratcher.
Been there.
Yeah. So LOUKIKK says, before you jump to any conclusions, find a third ray. Basically an outside perspective, someone older and wiser who can offer guidance.
Like a mentor or advisor, kind of?
Exactly. It's about getting a fresh pair of eyes on the situation.
Because we all have our blind spots.
Exactly. And sometimes we're so caught up in our own heads, we can't see the forest for the trees.
So the third ray can offer a different viewpoint, maybe help you see solutions you hadn't considered.
Right. And maybe even challenge your assumptions a bit.
Oh, I like that. So it's not just about getting advice, it's about broadening your perspective.
Absolutely. And this all ties back to another big theme in LOUKIKK's book, self-belief.
Believe to become, right?
Yes, he's basically saying you need to believe in yourself before you can achieve anything worthwhile.
Which, again, is easier said than done, especially as a teenager.
For sure. But he uses this really powerful analogy. He compares self-belief to the nourishment a child sapling needs to grow.
So without that belief, it's like you're starving your potential.
Exactly. And then he even touches on the law of attraction.
Which is?
The idea that what you focus on, you attract. Like
Yeah.
if you constantly doubt yourself, you're more likely to attract negative outcomes.
Oh, interesting. So it's about cultivating a positive inner environment.
Exactly. It all starts with your mindset, your belief in yourself.
So believing in yourself is important, sure. But what about when things get tough? Like, life's gonna throw curveballs, right?
Oh, yeah, definitely. And LOUKIKK actually dedicates a good chunk of the book to this, to like navigating challenges.
Okay, so what's his take? How does he say teenagers should deal with, like, the inevitable roadblocks?
Well, he starts by making this distinction between like reacting to something versus responding.
Okay, I think I get that. Like, don't just fly off the handle.
Exactly. He actually gives this really funny example about spilling soup at the dinner table.
Oh, God, every teenager's nightmare.
Right. And he's like, imagine you're there, table full of guests, and bam, soup everywhere.
Okay, yeah, I can picture the horror.
So he says reacting is like that instant freak out, yelling, blaming, or just wanting to disappear.
Basically, fight, flight, or freeze.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But responding is when you take a breath, acknowledge what happened, and then you deal with it calmly.
It's way harder than it sounds, though.
Oh, for sure. Especially for teenagers.
So how does LOUKIKK say we can get better at responding instead of just reacting?
He says it's a skill you build up, and it's especially important when it comes to like three big things: pressure, criticism, and then making mistakes.
Those are all pretty much unavoidable parts of life.
Tell me about it. Okay, so pressure. LOUKIKK actually sees pressure as a good thing, believe it or not.
Really, most people would say pressure is the opposite of good.
I know, right? But he uses this analogy of a diamond.
Okay, how so?
So a diamond, it takes a ton of pressure to turn a lump of coal into that.
That is true. It's like pressure makes it strong and beautiful.
And he says it's kind of the same with us. Challenges, even if they're stressful, they can make us tougher, more resilient.
I'm starting to think this LOUKIKK kid is wise beyond his years.
Right. Okay, then there's criticism. That one's always hard to stomach, especially for teenagers, I'd imagine.
They're already dealing with so much self-doubt at that age.
Totally. But LOUKIKK, he says don't just shut down when you get criticized. He says try to see it as an opportunity to grow.
Easier said than done again.
He's got this system for it, though. He calls it the triple S method. Stop, scrutinize, speak.
Okay, break that down for me.
All right, so first you stop, like literally pause before you react all emotionally.
So don't just fire back a defensive response.
Exactly. Then scrutinize. Think about the criticism. Is it true? Is it helpful?
And then I'm guessing you speak.
Yep. But thoughtfully, you know. Either you own up to your mistake or you explain your side calmly.
So less about being right, more about actually learning something.
He uses this example of the Indian Space Research Organization, ISRO.
Yeah, they do amazing work.
So before they launched their mission to Mars, the scientists, they found like 250 potential points of failure.
250, that's thorough.
It's about being open to feedback,
Right.
even if it's tough to hear sometimes.
Makes sense. Okay, so pressure, criticism, what was the last one?
Mistakes.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, nobody's immune to those, right?
Definitely not. And those can be so demoralizing.
LOUKIKK has a good outlook on it, though. He's basically like, yeah, everyone makes mistakes. It's part of learning.
Doesn't he use the example of J.K. Rowling getting rejected for Harry Potter like a million times?
A lot of times, yeah. I think that's in there. It's like, even the most successful people, they've had setbacks, but they didn't give up.
So it's not about not making mistakes. It's about how you recover from them.
Exactly. LOUKIKK really stresses forgiveness. Forgiving yourself when you mess up and forgiving others, too.
It's like holding on to that guilt and shame. It doesn't really help anyone.
Right. Okay, so we've got these challenges, but how do we actually start achieving things? Like, what's LOUKIKK's secret?
Yeah, how do we bridge that gap?
So this is where he gets into practical skills for success. And he starts with, get this, attitude.
Attitude, huh? Kind of a vague one, isn't it?
Yeah, but LOUKIKK, he doesn't just leave it at that. He actually tells this story about meeting Amitabh Bachchan.
Wow, okay, now that's a name everyone knows.
Right. And it's not even like name dropping. He talks about how humble Bachchan was, even though he's this huge movie star.
So it's about staying grounded, even when you're successful.
Exactly. Like, real success isn't about acting like you're better than everyone else.
I like that. Okay, what else does LOUKIKK say about, like, practical skills? Because attitude is good, but it doesn't pay the bills.
True. Well, get this. He talks about the power of saying no.
Seriously.
That's his big advice.
I know, right? Sounds kind of basic, but hear him out. He's talking about saying no to unnecessary spending.
Okay, that makes more sense. Like having the discipline to not blow all your money.
Exactly. And he ties it back to financial health, which a lot of teenagers, they don't really think about that yet.
It's true. Most of them are just thinking about the next thing they want to buy, not long-term stuff. Right. And LOUKIKK, he's trying to change that. Oh, and speaking of time, he has this whole bit about time management.
Another classic. Everyone wants more time.
He's got this stat. It's like if you wake up just 2 hours earlier every day, it's like adding an extra month to your year.
Whoa, that's trippy, like time travel almost.
Right, and then he gets into these specific techniques, like the Pomodoro technique.
I think I've heard of that.
It's where you work in intervals, like 25 minutes on, 5 minutes off.
I've tried that. It's surprisingly effective, breaking your work up like that.
And then there's the Eisenhower matrix, which helps you decide what tasks are actually important.
These all sound super helpful, but I'm curious, does he talk about money at all? Like actual finances?
He does. It's a whole section,
You
actually.
didn't expect that from a 16-year-old.
Right. But it makes sense. He starts off with this fact that only 27% of Indians are financially literate.
Whoa, seriously, that's really low.
Yeah, so he's like, we got to start learning this stuff early. And he gets into, like, budgeting.
Does he, like, dumb it down, or is it too complicated?
No, he explains it really well. He talks about the 50-30-20 rule.
Which is?
50% of your income for needs, 30% for wants, and then 20% goes to savings or paying off debt.
Simple but effective.
Exactly. And then, get this, he explains compound interest.
Okay, that one's always hard to wrap your head around.
But he does it. He compares it to, like, a snowball effect.
Yeah.
The earlier you start investing, even small amounts, the more it grows over time.
It's like magic money, almost.
And then he even gets into SIPs, like those investment plans.
This kid is going places, I'm telling you. So what's the, like, overall message here? If someone's listening to this, what's the one thing they should take away?
I think it's that, personal growth, it's not just for adults. LOUKIKK is proof that even teenagers can have these deep insights and share them with the world.
It's inspiring, honestly. He's like a mini guru for the modern age.
Right. He challenges us to be more self-aware, to embrace who we are, and to never stop learning.
Well said. And on that note, we're going to have to wrap up this deep dive. But seriously, if a 16-year-old can write a book like this, imagine what you can do. Thanks for listening, everyone.